Alright guys, so this video has two introductions. The completely unedited one that I filmed originally when starting this video, and this one now. And the reason for that is because unRAID actually had transitioned from a unstable release 6.4 RC9 to 6.4, which is the stable version. And there were a couple modifications that I actually had to do in the middle of filming that you'll see later on in this video. But for what it's worth, a bit of a spoiler, I did end up using the old server. I did end up getting a GTX 1050, and everything is working on 6.4 of unRAID on High Sierra as well. Okay, now that I've spoiled most of the video, let's go ahead and see what had originally happened all the way from beginning to end. Hello and welcome back. So this video was supposed to be released in January, but I kind of ran out of time because I spent way too much time doing research and actually configuring a Hackintosh virtual machine on unRAID, which was successful, but not really the way I wanted. So we'll take a look at that a little bit later in this video. But first, just to preface the reason why I want to do this is really because this is my MacBook Pro. It's a dual core system and it's starting to show its age. Editing all these videos are starting to take much longer, especially now that I'm filming in 4K. So I figured I would utilize one of my servers that I just decommissioned, if you remember from a previous video, to become a Hackintosh. Well, I tried doing the whole Hackintosh build on the server, but there's so much misinformation and so many conflicting results and a lot of sketchy websites you get into when trying to build a Hackintosh. It ended up being unsuccessful. However, I found some pretty good videos on how to build a Hackintosh VM on unRAID, which I did and was successful. Now, the videos were damn near perfect, but there was some information that was missing in the videos, or maybe I had just missed it. Probably I missed it, but I ended up figuring it out anyway. So I'm going to post a link in the description below for those videos that helped me build a Hackintosh VM in unRAID. So if you're looking to do the same thing, you can do that as well. Now, so obviously the resources on my server are I have 32 cores and 64 gigs of RAM, and I figured that would really help edit these videos more quickly on my timeline. Well, it turns out Final Cut Pro actually requires a graphics card. So now I have to figure out how I'm going to proceed. Do I buy another graphics card, or do I dual boot my gaming computer to do unRAID and use the Titan X for my Hackintosh build and then reduce the number of cores? So I guess we're going to have to explore that a little bit too and figure out which is the best course of action. Unfortunately, I don't have another GPU to test with that is compatible with the Apple OS X software or operating system, whatever you want to call it. So I'm not quite sure how we're going to get this video done, but whatever the matter, let's go ahead and take a look at the Hackintosh that I currently have up and running with 16 cores and 62 gigabytes of RAM. Now, if you recall from a previous video, one of the reasons why I stopped using this server was because of this issue right here. The only way to get through this is by hitting F1 to skip. I've already tried flashing the BIOS. That didn't work. This problem will not go away. So because of that, what makes the server a good candidate for being a Hackintosh VM is that I'm not going to leave it on 24/7, and if it shuts down, I can easily just go back and turn it on and go through this process because it's not too big of a deal. But when you have, all your services like your your unified controller, it's kind of important that the server is able to boot all the way into unRAID and then all the way in the Ubuntu server that hosts the unified controller. So that way, I have DNS resolution. Any new computers that join the network will grab an IP address from the DHCP server and all that jazz. Everything just works a lot better when the unified controller is operational. So now this server basically does nothing. So I can use it pretty much for whatever I want, which is literally just for playtesting. Okay, so it boots right up into unRAID. I didn't have to do anything because the BIOS is already configured to boot to USB. And I'm actually using a Transcend 32 gigabyte flash drive. It was like maybe $16 back in the day. I've had it for a really long time. It's perfect for unRAID, at least currently. No problems yet. So what I want to take a look at now is just kind of how unRAID is currently set up for this Hackintosh build. So it does require a very specific version, which is 6.4.0 RC9 Foxtrot. You can do higher, supposedly, according to the video I watched, but I did exactly what he said in his video, minus a couple other parts that we'll get into later, and created essentially this unRAID operating system as well as the Mac OS X. So every time the server does boot up, I do have to restart the array, which kind of sucks. But it's not too big of a deal because, again, I can access everything I need through the web. So we'll just give this a minute to start up. I think I hit start. There we go. As you can also see, this is the boot device is that Transcend 32 gigabyte disk that I mentioned earlier, and that is going to be replaced probably by a newer, or not, maybe not newer, but a different USB flash storage device recommended by unRAID. That should be coming in the mail any day now, but there has been a snowstorm that has prevented UPS from getting to me. So there's really not much in this server. This is basically just leftover hardware. I don't really care about parity. I don't have anything to lose on here yet. The VM sits on the Samsung SSD, and this is just additional storage, probably where I'll keep more videos, or I don't know, who knows what. This would just be additional storage. I'll probably get this fixed if I decide to build into the truncator. So if I dual boot into the truncator, I'll be using all these disks there. But that remains to be seen. We'll check that out. But for now, so we're just gonna go ahead and look at our VMs. And here is High Sierra itself. It has 16 cores, 62 gigs of memory, and has, wow, that's actually a lot more. Oh, that's because it's 2 total drives. So it says it has up to 432 gigabytes of storage. That is not true. The reason why it says that much is because there's actually 2 disks assigned to this. There is the boot disk. This is the image that you actually create in the video if you want to go check that out. And then this is the disk where the actual operating system sits. In order for this to actually work, to see this QCOW, I actually had to change the vdisk type to QCOW2 and then SATA in order to get OS X to boot correctly. So I don't think this was mentioned in one of the videos. You'll see it when you get there, but this is what I had to do to get it to work for me. So not really much else to see in here. I tried doing more cores, like 30 cores and 18 cores, but 16 cores seems to be the limit right now. I haven't really explored too much into why that is. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. I'll try and get around that. Probably the most important thing here is setting the machine type to be Q35 2.9. This is absolutely critical. Anything else will not work at all. And the BIOS you want is definitely OVMF. So enough playing around with this. Let's just go ahead and start up this VM, and then we'll access it. Let's go ahead and just check out to see what it looks like as it boots up. So this is, of course, Clover. I didn't select anything here. It just automatically booted itself. So we'll give it a minute, and then once it's up, we'll actually switch away from VNC. We don't necessarily need VNC to access this virtual machine. We can use it. I think what I'll be doing in the future is not using VNC or I guess OS X's remote session management session or server session thing. I don't even know what it's called. I'll probably get away from using both of those, and I would like to actually pass through a GPU and then boot that way. Okay, so we're gonna access that VM now. It's not called anything fancy. It doesn't look like it's on the network yet, which is kind of strange. Okay, and of course, the networking is not working for some reason, of course, when I go to show it off. unRAID claims that the Ethernet port is unplugged, but I don't believe that's true, because obviously I can get to my virtual machine via VNC, but that's besides the point. So let's just go ahead and check out what the Mac believes is, how many cores it has and what general information it thinks it has. So if we look here, it believes that it has a 2.59 gigahertz processor, which is actually accurate. I think that processor does run at those speeds, which is good. It sees 61 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM. It's supposed to be 62, so I think there's some rounding issue or something going on here. Not incredibly a big deal, but it does see that accurately. It sees it as a 27-inch late 2013 iMac, which is obviously not true, and the rest of this information is obviously faked. Let's see if we can see a little bit more information. So it still sees, it doesn't even see the speed of our memory, which is 1333 hertz, by the way, or megahertz, by the way. Kind of slow, but it is ECC RAM, which is nice. And I don't really see anything else here. Let's see what system report generates. So it sees one processor with 8 cores total, and does it show threads? It does not show the threads, which is okay. So one thing we can do is we can type in a command in the terminal window to see the exact number of logical cores that this virtual machine believes it has, which is 16, which is accurate, which is really good. So I think that this means this is all working correctly. I haven't had any issues with it yet. I haven't tried to update it. There are updates available, which I guess I'll get to in the future. And again, the whole reason why I built this thing was just so I can make video editing a bit better. However, if I can find it, where the hell is it? Final Cut Pro. So, however, if I launch Final Cut Pro, it starts booting up and it says, oh, graphics configuration not supported. So I didn't know this, but now I know. Final Cut Pro actually requires either onboard graphics or graphics card. So now we have to figure out if we're going to use a truncator or not as a dual booted system for gaming and for my workstation, or my new editing workstation for videos. So I guess we'll figure that out in the future, but this is working. If I do decide to get another graphics card, I can actually pass that through to this virtual machine and it will be good to go. So as you can see here, the mouse tracking is actually okay through Tiger VNC. There is actually a better way that I really want to show you, but I think I'm gonna have to troubleshoot that. That gives better mouse movement, but if I do pass through a GPU, I'll actually be able to use my own monitor, my own keyboard and mouse, so that will make things a lot better and feel more like a workstation. Okay, so taking a look at Geekbench. Geekbench believes that this is an iMac 14.2 and has an Intel Core 2 Duo system. Obviously, this is not true at all. I guess because it's a virtual machine, this doesn't work. I believe there is a way to improve this, but since it's working, I'm not really going to tinker around too much with it because it is working and I don't want to break it. And these virtual machines are incredibly easy to break. So I did do a benchmark, and it received a 2,696 single core score and a 16,612 multi-threaded score, which I think is pretty good. So let's just take a look at other benchmarks from other systems on what they've scored. So here we have a Intel Core i7-770K. It had a single threaded score of 5,678. So let's just bring that back up. That's significantly better than my Xeon, which makes kind of sense. This is essentially brand new processor here. My Xeon is basically from 2012, so it's pretty old and shows its age. But you know, with i7 processors, you're always going to see a slightly better single-threaded score anyway. That's pretty common. Here's a Xeon of a late iMac Pro. That's a pretty good score compared to mine. Again, mine was 2,600. This is 8 cores or 16 threads. Let's see. I don't see any other Xeons here, but basically, it even looks like my MacBook is better, has a better single core rate than these things. And here's a Mac Mini, which has a better single CPU score than mine. That's okay. Where we're really going to see a lot of benefit from is the actual multi-core user space. So, wow, looks like a MacBook Pro from 2012 might actually be better than mine. I forgot what my multi-thread score, 16,000. Okay, so we're not too far behind this. They're the same kind of, they're within the same year at least. So it's a little bit worse than a MacBook or a Mac Pro from 2012. But again, I didn't have to spend thousands of dollars on a CPU to see that kind of performance. Obviously all my equipment's used, so it's probably not a fair comparison, but nonetheless, didn't have to do it. Even the newer Mac Pros are significantly better than what I currently have. And of course, the latest and greatest is just blows it out of the water. So I'd be interested to see what my i7 actually does when I get that working here down the road. Now, there were a couple of things in Space Invader's YouTube video that were a bit unclear in the making, and one of them was how to get 6.4 release 9. So what I did is I went to the LimeTech download page, grabbed my macOS USB creator, and upon installing it and downloading and installing it, it came up with this. You open the app, you have to enter in your password because reasons. And where it says select version, it gives you the two latest stable releases of unRAID, 6.35 and 6.34. One thing I didn't realize was that you could do next and then select 6.4 release 9 Foxtrot. So this is how you would actually get that image. Wasn't exactly clear. It's not really a big deal. I guess if you're a bit more explorative, you would figure that out on your own. So that's how you would do it. And also, you could customize the name preemptively instead of just calling it tower.local. Like I called mine Hackintosh, kind of like a play on Hackintosh and the Skyrim. I'm sorry, not the Skyrim, but the God in the Elder Scrolls series, Hackintosh. So that's something you could do preemptively too, which was kind of helpful. Another thing that I had to do that was a little bit different than what he showed in his videos was the Clover installer he used. Let's see if I actually have it here. Yeah, so he used Clover version 2.4 R420. Well, I ended up having to actually use Clover 2.4 release 4359. That's what worked for me, and I believe those were the only differences aside from the one I showed you earlier, where in the actual virtual machine itself, I had to, I can't even edit it right now. Well, we can just go ahead and stop this because I don't need it. So where I had to edit the SATA drive to be QCal, which allowed OS X to actually format the virtual disk that was given to it. So we're gonna go through everything that I did when I do this for the truncator for dual booting, because I really want to do pass through for the Titan X. It's starting to look like this might actually be a two-part series, but we'll see what happens. So again, if you follow Space Invader's instructions to the T and you make a couple adjustments, at least with the ones I just showed you, you can also do this at home. It's pretty freaking easy, assuming you follow everything perfectly. There is a couple moments where if you edit the XML file that you'll see later on, or in his videos, if you don't really do that quite exactly, it gets a little bit messy. But again, if I can do it, I'm pretty sure anybody out there that's watching this can also do it themselves. So this has finally arrived. I've been waiting for like 2 weeks to get this. And you might be wondering, what exactly is this? Well, this is nothing too special. It is just a SanDisk 16 gigabyte thumb drive. And I'm pretty much just going to use this flash drive for unRAID. And this thing is going to go into, oh snap. And I'm just going to put this onto the truncator, which is currently my gaming computer. And this will kind of be like my temporary usage thing for, wow, this thing is really packaged funny. Storage place for my operating system for unRAID. So SanDisk is recommended by unRAID. There's a bunch of other ones that you can find from the community about which flash drive to use. I just chose this one because it's on their recommended list. Actually, this particular model is not listed there, but SanDisk products are as a whole. So this thing's pretty nifty. It's kind of tiny. Can't get to focus very well, but whatever. It's super tiny. Exactly what you think you need. Usually they don't recommend, or for OS X, USB 3.0. This is USB 3.0. In my testing with the Transcend USB flash drive, USB 3.0 worked perfectly fine. So I would quite imagine that this is going to work just as well also. So moving on. Okay, just to quickly interrupt in this part of the video. So I didn't use a truncator because I was having a lot of issues with unRAID as well as my OS X VM that I couldn't quite pin down what the issues were. In unRAID, it was actually quite simply just a Intel NIC driver issue. So that was actually pretty easy to resolve, but the rest of the issues were with the OS X VM. Could not figure out why I wouldn't boot anymore. I have no idea. So we ended up just using the dual core 2011 V1 server that you've seen many times in other previous videos. And we also are using the SanDisk as the unRAID boot device instead of the Transcend one, like I had mentioned earlier in this video. So from this point forward, everything is on the dual core server. Not a big deal. It all works out. Trust me. Okay, let's go ahead and create the unRAID USB operating system. It's pretty simple. We're just going to use the creation application that unRAID has given us, and we will be good to go. So actually I forgot, before we actually use the USB creator, we're actually going to want to use disk utility first. We're going to need to format our USB thumb drive that we're going to install. In this case, this is untitled SanDisk that is recommended by unRAID. I'm going to make it a GUID partition and not a master boot record. It can be named whatever. I just did exFAT. I don't actually know what the requirements are. The unRAID creation or USB creator will format it anyway, but this is a key step that I have found that is required to minimize any mistakes during the creation of the USB creator and some of the problems that may occur earlier. So try to refresh here. Still no changes in the USB creator. Can't select a newer edition. So I guess we're going to try with 6.4 stable and see what happens from there. I'm going to go ahead and customize this now. I'm going to name it Hackintosh, kind of like the the Elder Scrolls god Hackintosh. Everything else seems okay. Make sure it's selected, and I'm going to go ahead and hit write. This won't take too long to do. It'll only take a few minutes. So once it's done, we'll be good to go. Okay, the USB creator is done. So now we can go ahead and move on to the next part. Okay, so got unRAID all configured as Space Invaders videos recommended. Got my Mac OS High Sierra USB bootloader created as Space Invader had outlaid in his YouTube videos, which are linked below, so you'll be able to do this at home. All we have to do is install OS X. Now, I've already started the installation process. It'll reboot a couple of times throughout this process. It is pretty straightforward from here. It's quite literally just going through the installation of OS X, as you can see. So we also get to the part where you have to select your country. I mean, obviously I live in the United States. Create your user account. Go through the Express setup and customize it if you so choose. And of course, choosing your time zone. And then eventually setting up your Mac will be completed and you should boot right up into the OS. So you will have to set up your keyboard. I don't know why it doesn't see my Mac keyboard for what it is, but that's okay because it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what this Hackintosh thinks it's got going on. So open up About This Mac. It is on version 10.13.2. It has 61 gigabytes of DDR3, which is actually supposed to be 62, but that's okay. And you can actually see the correct clock speed of our Intel processor. I'm just kind of checking out. Let's go in storage. It doesn't seem to see the RAM correctly, and the storage looks kind of weird, but that's okay. At least it sees everything else pretty well. So let's check out System Report, get some better details. Okay, we have 8 cores, which is correct because we're supposed to have 16 total core, logical cores assigned to it. So 8 cores, 16 threads, 1 processor, again 61 gigabytes of RAM. Okay, so I've just finished installing the NVIDIA drivers. As you can see here, it's already kind of running, or at least you see the NVIDIA icon. One thing I want to do before I reboot this thing, so this way I can access it later, because this will not have a dedicated keyboard or dedicated mouse. So I need a way to interact with the machine when it's powered on or on the network. So what I need to do before I reboot again is make this thing accessible, essentially through remote desktop sections or remote management in this case. So I'm going to want to go ahead and enable remote management. Yes, I want to be able to observe, and I'm just going to go ahead and enable every single one of these options, so that way I have full control over this session, because once we remove the VNC ability from this virtual machine, I won't be able to do anything. So I don't think I really need this. This is for SSH. We'll leave it disabled for now. Hopefully we can get away with it. We probably don't need to do any file sharing from this computer. We still will be able to access files remotely. And as far as screen sharing goes, yeah, okay, with remote management we don't need it. So I'm just gonna go with what I have. And yeah, for all users, there's only really one user on this anyway, and that'll be myself. So it looks good. All right, so we're gonna shut this down, and I don't know how to. There we go. Don't want to reopen anything. Shut down. So let's refresh this. Hopefully this goes away. Okay, so I've already done the legwork for getting my NVIDIA graphics card to work with the virtual machine. So again, if you want to figure out how this is done, I would recommend going to watch Space Invader's videos that are linked in the video description, so you can do this at home as well. So I just need to edit this XML, delete all of this code, paste in my adjusted code with the NVIDIA graphics card. So this is basically the information that I need for the NVIDIA and sound drivers right here. Click update. Now when I launch it this time, I'm not going to see anything in the BIOS. I won't have any way of actually knowing the thing is booted up properly. I don't even know if this was working now. It doesn't seem like it, because normally unRAID is much more quick. Oh, that's not good. All right, so it's in the pause state. I don't know what to make of that. All right, we're gonna force stop it. And just for fun, I think I'm just gonna reboot the server just in case. I have no idea what the problem might be, but I feel like rebooting the server might help. So I guess we'll see what happens. Okay, so the server's booted back up, so hopefully when we go into the VMs here, I can pull. I guess I left auto start on. Very interesting. Okay, so it looks like it took my my updated XML. So that's the XML that I'm talking about, of course, is what I just copied in there earlier. I don't have it open anymore. Don't need to open it. So right now, no way to interact with this virtual machine, which could be bad depending on how you view things. However, since we did enable remote management, I should be able to go to the network here. Okay, I see it on the network, so that's good. And click on share screen. Enter in my credentials. And holy balls, it's totally working. I have to log in twice. It's kind of weird. Okay, that's not bad. A little fuzzy. See what happens if I take scaling off. Scaling. Is there a way to does this maximize it? Let's see. Oh, okay, so I guess if I just kind of drag the sides or something. I don't know, maybe not. It looks like the full resolution. Okay, well. Oh, wait, that isn't the full resolution. We're going to have to scale it because it looks like I can't even push some of this stuff. So we'll figure that out later. For now, fact of the matter is it's working. I can play with the preferences on my own time to really see what happens. So, I don't know, let's look at system preferences. Let's see if it sees the graphics card. I wonder if it'd be under display. No. Alright, we'll go to about this Mac, maybe. Oh, there it is. Totally sees it. NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050, 2 gigabytes. Hell yes. Alright, so obviously, a quick test for this would be to stop letting me mess around with it. Oh my god, I think I broke it. I don't know what I did, but I broke it. Yep. Oh, there we go. I just lost connection or something. Okay, we're back. Woo! That scared me. Okay, I'm gonna stop touching things. Alright, so the final test is to install Final Cut Pro on here and see if it works. Okay, so I fixed the screen recording issue, or not screen recording, but the screen resolution issue. So now I'm running at full 3440 by 1440p, and we're gonna launch Final Cut Pro for the first time and see what happens. So last time, if you remember, I launched, wow, that was actually pretty quick. The last time I launched it, it didn't launch because it didn't say, or because there was no graphics card, but now it looks like it's working. I can create a video library as I so choose. And just as a test, I'm going to, sorry, I can't think and create things at the same time apparently. I am going to edit the video that you're currently watching on the Hackintosh to see what happens and see how this goes. It's pretty good so far. There's a little bit of a delay between my mouse click, but I think that's because of the network connection, but that's okay because this is so far working out pretty well. Well, what a wild ride. It has taken about 2 months, basically a month and a half to get this working, and I gotta say, it's maybe not worth it. It's probably just a hell of a lot easier just to buy a new Mac, but they're incredibly expensive, at least for me. But I will say, from a personal kind of project, this has been probably one of the most challenging things I've done, even with the guide. And shout out to Space Invader. His guides were pretty damn near perfect. There's plenty of information. Didn't have to go hunting for things. Well, maybe a few things like for the NVIDIA graphics drivers, but it was pretty straightforward nonetheless compared to most of the Mac Hackintosh how-tos that I've come across in the past. But the challenge isn't quite over yet, because while yes, it is working on my server, I'm only using 16 threads or 8 cores, whatever have you, instead of the full 32 cores that are available to it, which I would love to do. So that's one challenge. Or I would love to use my Titan X as well as the truncator itself. Now it is a 5960X and it's only 8 cores or 16 threads, but with overclocking I could probably do some serious damage on Final Cut Pro with it. So ideally that's the setup I'd like to go with, but until then I'm kind of just going to have to stick it out with this in the meantime. And I'm going to run with it for about a week to see what happens. So again, if you want to figure out how to do this on your own, there will be links in the video descriptions and the exact order of steps that I followed, at least video-wise, from Space Invader that you can do at home yourself. And if you have any questions, you can ask, but I'm probably not the best person to ask. Should you need more help, you can go to the unRAID forums, which there'll be a link in the video description below for the exact thread that I used for this Hackintosh build. You can find a lot of help there from some people, and well, good luck, I guess, if you plan on doing something similar to this at home. And well, that concludes this video, and I just want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.